the deep quiet of Cedar Hollow, where the wind sang through tall trees and foxes left prints in the snow, there lived a man named Thomas Reed. Folks in the nearby town barely remembered him. Some said he had gone mad. Others believed he had simply vanished into the woods. But Thomas was still there, breathing, walking, living in a cabin far from the roads and the noise of the world. Years ago, he had been a teacher, with laughter in his voice and dreams in his eyes. But one rainy night while driving back from school, a drunk driver's car hit his wife's car, and everything ended. His wife, Emily, and their unborn daughter, gone in an instant. After the funeral, Thomas packed a bag, drove to Cedar Hollow, and never looked back. He lived in silence. He chopped wood, grew carrots and potatoes, fixed broken fences, and read old books by candlelight. He hadn't spoken to another human in over 4 years. Then came the winter storm. It was the kind of storm that shut down roads and snapped trees in half. One evening, as Thomas was pulling a trapped rabbit out of a snare, he saw something strange. Deep footprints leading into the woods. They were fresh, and they were too small for a hunter, too soft for a bear. He followed them, out of instinct, axe in hand, breath fogging in the freezing air. The footprint stopped near a fallen tree. And there, half buried in snow, was a boy no older than 12, holding a baby in his arms. His lips were blue, his face pale. Thomas knelt down. "Hey," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "What happened?" The boy opened one eye. "My mama's back there. She can't walk anymore." Thomas followed the boy's pointing hand and found her slumped against a tree, eyes closed, her coat torn. A young girl, maybe 8, sat beside her, trying to keep her warm. Without thinking, Thomas picked up the baby and said, "Follow me." The boy staggered behind him, holding the little girl's hand. Together they made it back to the cabin. That night, Thomas lit every candle, every fire. He wrapped the children in blankets. He boiled water and made a thin soup with whatever was left in his pantry. He didn't ask questions, he didn't speak much, but the silence between them was filled with a kind of understanding. In the morning, the woman woke up. Her name was Clara. Her husband had died of fever last autumn. They had been traveling to her sister's home in a far-off town, but they got lost in the snow and the food ran out. They had been walking for 3 days. Thomas said nothing. He just made them stay. In the days that followed, something strange began to happen. The baby, a girl named June, stopped crying. The older girl, Ellie, started humming songs while sweeping the floor. And the boy, Lucas, followed Thomas around the cabin like a shadow. Still, Thomas kept a distance. He repaired their shoes. He shared his bread. But he never smiled, never laughed. Until one night. It was late. Snow was falling again. Thomas was reading by the fire when he heard Ellie whisper, "Do you miss someone too?" He froze. She was standing in the corner, holding a doll with no arms. "Because sometimes, I think Mama cries when we're asleep. I think you cry too." Thomas stared at her, heart thudding. Then slowly he said, "Yes, I miss someone. Every day." She came closer. "Maybe we can miss people together." That night, Thomas didn't sleep. He sat by the fire watching the shadows move. And in the morning, when the children woke up, they found new socks by their beds. And Ellie's doll, it had new arms, carved from cedar. Still, the past had sharp teeth. One afternoon, Clara collapsed while hanging laundry. Her body trembled with fever. Thomas remembered that look. He had seen it before, in the hospital years ago. Panic rose in his throat, but he pushed it down. He wrapped her in blankets, fed her warm broth, but her fever grew. "We need medicine," Lucas said, voice shaking. Thomas stood, grabbed his coat, and said, "Take care of them. I'll be back." The nearest town was 15 miles away, and the trail was covered in snow. But Thomas walked and walked. His feet bled. His beard froze. But he walked. He reached the town after nightfall. He banged on the pharmacist's door until it opened. He bought everything he could carry: medicine, fruit, canned food, thick socks. Then he walked back, through the bitter, cold, muscles screaming with every step. He returned at dawn. His hands were shaking, his vision blurred. But Clara lived. The fever broke. The children cheered. And Thomas, for the first time in years, cried openly. Not from pain, but relief. Spring came quietly. Snow turned to mud. Mud gave way to wildflowers. The cabin, once silent and dark, now echoed with footsteps, with stories, with laughter. Thomas taught Lucas how to whittle wood. Ellie started drawing again, pictures of trees and foxes and a man who looked a lot like him. Baby June learned to walk and held Thomas's finger like it was the most natural thing in the world. And one afternoon, while planting seeds near the garden, Clara looked at him and asked softly, "What are we to you now, Thomas?" He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He simply placed his hand over hers. That summer, he went to town and signed papers. Adoption. New beds were built. A wooden swing was hung from the tallest pine. He carved their names into the porch post: Lucas, Ellie, June, and Clara. Years passed. Travelers sometimes got lost in Cedar Hollow. They would speak of a cabin surrounded by flowers and the smell of fresh bread, of a man with kind eyes and strong hands who once lived alone in silence, until 4 strangers knocked on his door and reminded him what it meant to be alive. And though Thomas never called himself a hero, those who met him never forgot. Because sometimes, the most broken heart just needs one reason, one knock at the door, to start beating again.